Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to a bit of an interesting video for the channel. So, before we get started, I want to mention that this is going to be a development log first for the Blackwater branch, but if you're watching on Virtual Railfan Productions, and this might be cut out on the actual upload from the TSD's Works channel, but if you're watching there, this will also be a channel update on what's going on with the Virtual Railfan Productions channel as a whole, because I've been uploading sporadically for the past couple of months now. But yeah, let's get started with this, shall we? So, where to begin, honestly? Well, I guess the first thing we need to start off with is what's been going on with the route since I released it on March of 2025. Or, well, in March of 2025. So, for those of you that don't know, the route has been in development since February 20th, 2020. And on March 20th, 2025, I actually ended up releasing the route to the general public. Now granted, this is a very rough and ready version of the route, with a lot of gaps in scenery and still a lot of things to be worked on, including the track work, which I actually have updated as of late. So there will be a updated version of the route going live soon. I can't put a date on it just yet because I don't know how much I'm going to put in there that needs to be updated or just needs to be changed out. But, with that said, there has been a lot in terms of just the actual development side of things. Keep in mind, I've been developing this route for 6 years. And it's one of these projects that quickly becomes a passion project for myself. Because that's what it started out as when it was first being developed as the Academy Corridor. For those of you that don't know, and I wouldn't be surprised if many of you don't know, I was developing a route called the Academy Corridor, which was set in the same universe as this route. Basically, this route is set in a universe of an anime that's based... So it's based off of fanfic that's based off an anime that I watched in 2015, which is where I got the idea for the route in the first place. So there's that. I'll go a little bit more into detail about that in a future video, but the long and short of it was that the Academy Corridor was my first attempt at route development, and this was back in 2018. A couple years later, I got the opportunity to take over this route from a friend of mine who was leaving the TS community, and I took over the route in February 2020 and started developing from there, and the route has come a long way since then. Huge areas of the route has been developed, a lot of key areas have been expanded, and a lot of trackage and mileage has been added, and not the least of which was recently just rebuilding the entire main line just outside of the main hub of the railroad, which was Stovall. So there's two main hubs of the railroad. There's Blackwater on the far eastern end of the route, and then there's Stovall, which is on the far western end of the route. Stovall has the direct connection to the mainline tracks that go as far as Elvenwood to the north, which is about 20 miles, and down south about 40 miles, 40, 30, somewhere around there. I haven't judged on the mileages yet, but Chadsworth, a big mining community, is also down south. And this is kind of tied into the route's history and whatnot, but that's gonna be a future expansion in the distant future, honestly, not the near future. Is that I'm gonna expand the mainline trackage up north about 20 miles to get to the city of Elvenwood, which is a big major rail hub in the route in universe lore. Now, this also means that track work has to be set up for high-speed running, and that's what I was trying to do for the life of me. And so far, I've gotten some of the track work to rework into locomotives going about 65 miles an hour safely without derailing, but there's been some issues trying to get the super elevation to work, and I've never really worked it out too well. And there's several key areas I want to keep intact and all this kind of stuff, so the mileage may vary on how fast these trains can go. But the general speed right now is about 65 to 75 miles an hour on the tracks, on the main line. And the general speed limit on the branch line, the Blackwater branch itself, was around 40 miles an hour to 35 miles an hour on several key areas of the route, with a few areas going down to 20-25. So it depends on where you are on the route, and there's still a lot of work to be done. Speaking of track work, I have updated the layout a little bit of some areas, not the least of which was the Shenandoah Mines, which now has a wide track added to it because I couldn't turn around many of the larger locomotives that I was using over there. And the Blackwater Power Station, which was a fairly new development in terms of like actually developing the route. Actually, a year and a half ago now, I added that little branch line to it. And it was basically just a power station where you could go out onto through the Blackwater rail yard and continue your run up to a wide track that allowed you to get back out onto the main from there. But I decided that this is kind of boring. I decided to make another spur track that went further up north to a power station where you could drop off hoppers full of coal. So it gave a complete chain of various industries there for people to really work with. Now, granted, that's only like a small portion of the track work that's been done. The other thing that's been being worked on has been the scenery. The scenery itself has been reworked quite just slowly, but enough where it's like actually getting to a point where it's pretty significant. The most interesting thing, though, that I have been working on was, again, right around the main line outside of Stovall. I actually raised up the terrain to make it look more mountainous because this is in the heart of the mountains. This route is meant to be the heart of the mountains in this universe. And I decided that to make it look more mountainous, I was going to raise the terrain a bit even higher. Initially, I didn't intend to raise it this high up, but I was like, okay, this looks actually pretty decent, and kept going with it. And there's going to be several key areas on the route where a lot of that is being reworked. Another area in particular is around the town of Eureka, which is another key area on the map, or on the route. That is also getting some hills and terrain added to it to make it look a little bit more mountainous and a little more hilly. And then you've got areas like Blackwater, which is also going to be a little bit more reworked and allow for a bit more terrain in the background to kind of hide the fact that it's very flat outside the borders of the map. And that's something I've always had trouble with to to really get the feel of the route, was to put it in a place where if you traveled far enough away from the train, you wouldn't just see just barren wasteland of just like nothingness away from the train. Like, it wasn't meant to be kind of like a diorama situation. It was meant to be a full-on like scenery-esque sort of, like you could travel to one end and the other, and you can actually see like, oh yeah, that's where this connects up, that's where that connects up, and so on and so forth. But for the life of me, it took forever to build a lot of the areas up. The cities in particular in this route have taken so much time, and so many different route assets are used because of it, that leads into the other problem with the route lately. And that is how much I've been using for scenery assets. For the last couple of years, the intention was to actually make this so it was a small sort of like minimal requirement route that didn't need many assets to run. That ballooned pretty quickly when I started using various other routes for scenery purposes. The latest edition is actually the Cascades route from Railworks America, which is a payware route, probably one of the few payware routes available on Railworks America that I've been using. There's only 2 payware routes on Railworks America, and this is one of them. Now, the reason I was using it was because of the catenary system that's needed for the main line. But as I start looking into this a little bit more, I realize that Pipestone Pass uses some of the exact same assets, and I have not used that. It makes it easier for people to get, because, again, Railworks America tends to be a bit of a finicky mess when it comes to actually getting to where you need to get certain assets and everything. In fact, that was the other thing. Half my assets that I've been using for the Blackwater branch have been coming from Railworks America as part of other people's assets. And I've been debating on whether or not I need to replace a lot of these, or even just removing them altogether and just making my own. And there's just one particular area, the Blackwater Railroad Museum, that I really do need to consider actually keeping. But it's going to need me to actively just either model something brand new to allow it to look decent, or basically figure out which asset pack it's from and then just set that as the main requirement and everything else is secondary. But a good chunk of the requirements, such as Bessemer Lake Erie, that's another one that's required. That is going to stay the same because it's freeware and it's easily accessible from Railworks America's site. But there's a good chunk of those assets, most of them just scenery assets, that are like, why did I even put this in here when I need to cut down on the amount of assets? The latest sort of example of this, well, not the latest, it's actually one of the first examples of this, was the pump jacks that are featured in the Blackwell Fields. And yeah, these little pump jacks have been a pain in the ass to find a good replacement for. I need them to be featured on the route, of course, but the ones I found were part of a Czechoslovakia asset pack that's like 3 gigs to download or something like that, and you need an account to log in. It's all this kind of wonky little stuff, and to me it's like, I've already made like a station platform and some signs along the route. Why can't I decide to either commission somebody to make this for the route, or make it myself and learn kind of animation and all this other kind of stuff? And I've been debating on whether or not I could need to commission somebody to actually make and animate one of these pump jacks. But at the same time, it's also something like the route itself is going to need a lot of these custom scenery assets over time to replace a lot of the freeware stuff that I've been using this whole time. And I really do need to consider, and this has been an actual valid complaint from a few people that have actually downloaded the route. There's been some valid complaints about the fact that there's so many assets required. And this has been a problem for many Railworks routes in the past, is the amount of assets required to run a single route. Keep in mind that with many routes in Railworks, you actively need to purchase additional route content or locomotive content to run a single freeware route, because a lot of them don't come with the scenery included. A lot of them are just basically reusing assets from other routes, so you're going to have to buy them or make them yourself. And that was kind of the big problem there. So I just need to go through the asset list and continue reworking a lot of stuff. The main thing I really want to rework is that pump jack setup. Because, again, that's using an asset pack that's very, very few things from it are being used in general. You've got the pump jacks, a handful of buildings, and that's about it. I think the only other thing that's used quite heavily is the corn, which was part of that asset pack as well. And it's why am I even using this? This is just like, I could probably make this in 2 seconds. But yeah, there's a lot of issues with how much I'm using in terms of freeware and payware. And I really do need to go through and figure out what I need to remove. But aside from that, there's been some other developments as well. So the other big thing that I've been trying to work on, along with the track reworking and scene replacement, has been scenarios. There's been a handful of scenario ideas that I've had. Like, this route was meant to be a DLC size route. That was the big thing. It was meant to be DLC size with rolling stock, locomotives, assets, scenarios, all this kind of stuff. And I've already, and during one of the videos on Virtual Railfan Productions, or, well, this channel, depending on where you're watching this, I actually went ahead and showcased one of these scenarios that is presently in the works. It actually has to be reworked entirely now because of the track work and everything. But it showed a basic operational headache nightmare thing where you have to double the hill just to get out of Stovall with a heavy train with a single locomotive. This would have been back during the early days of the route, and traffic would have been even smaller than it eventually became. So you've got a lot of like little operational headaches and little scenery assets that will be used in there that kind of tell the story of the route in a bit more detail and kind of introduce the player into how this world operates, how this world feels and everything. And it should come with a manual eventually as well. Once I get to the point where I feel like the route is in a pretty much finalized state, I've always had plans to release a manual with it as well to kind of give a detailed information about the route, kind of going off with the history and everything. And there was also the fact that I also plan to make videos, dedicated videos, talking about the route's history, some of the locomotive histories and stuff like that. And one of the locomotives in particular, the Titan, that locomotive has been finished, ready to go. It's a small SW1200 with a nameplate plastered on it. And it's been finished and ready to go for a while. And the only thing that's been hampering me from releasing that lately has been the fact that I need to write down the README in terms of how to install it and how to get all the information. In fact, actually, it's the installation portion of it that needs to be finished up. Everything else is done. So that's gonna be probably released within the next couple of weeks after this video is posted. I will link it in the description later on once it's been released to kind of allow you guys to take a look and mess around with it. But that's one of the few things that needs to be really worked on at this point that yeah, needs some more just general work. As for the state of the channel right now, it's okay. I've been trying to be a little bit more consistent in terms of uploading, but every now and again, once I get things going, it tends to slow down abruptly. The case in point was this month, or last month now, of February. I had a video released every other day in February up until the very last week. And it was actually pretty good in terms of like actually making content, because I was actually catching up quite a bit on footage. But then I kind of slipped behind schedule, mainly with Railroader in particular. Railroader, I was trying to get things caught up in that save, so I didn't have to like drastically do all-nighters in the game, switching cars and whatnot. And yeah, that just got away from me, and I started playing the game normally, just not thinking of it. So that was a bit of a problem. And then you got Railworks, where I was trying to find different scenarios or even work on my route, which, again, if you watched the earlier part of this video, you understand that that was taking a lot of time as well. Railroads Online was one of those things where I could pick up and play and not worry about it too much, but it was also something I didn't want to do constantly to the point where it was just like that was the only thing on my channel. I wanted to put in some variety. Derail Valley was a series that had basically been abandoned for a while, and then I brought it back. But I think, as of right now, some of my video ideas for this next couple of months will be pretty interesting. So the first thing I want to get out of the way is the fact that I do plan on doing videos on some more unique games, such as Wonders of Sodor, which is coming out maybe by the time this video comes out, it should be out. If not, I don't know. It should be pretty soon. It should be by the end of this month, at least. But I also have other games that I want to play. There's games called Workers and Resources that I've always wanted to dabble in on the channel, but just never got around to it. It's kind of a city builder more than a transportation type game, but I wanted to put it in the channel because I wanted to play it on the channel because it was just something I was having fun with for a while and kind of want to get back into a little bit. And the fact that it's set in the Soviet Union and kind of like this weird amalgamation of like the basically all the stuff with the workshop that you can get and all the like the actual history in the Soviet Union, albeit kind of wonky. I mean, the game treats it a little bit more. It's a very interesting game, and I would love to play it on the channel for a little bit, because I got a bunch of mods on there that would be actually fun to mess around with. There's also other games. Train Sim World 6 might be a more regular appearance on this channel, and again, Derail Valley is also going to be a bit more frequent as well. But some other video series that I've always wanted to get back to, one of the particular series that I think I did one video on, and I just stopped entirely. This was more for a friend of mine, and that was it, was the how-to series. I had plans for a large tutorial series on how to do certain things in Train Sim Classic and other various rail sims, or train games rather. And it just never took off because I just never got around to it. But I think now that things are getting further along here, like with Wonders of Sodor in particular, I think that's going to be a big one where just seeing how many people have actually taken an interest in this game from Dovetail, and as a result have been pretty much thrown into an environment where they've never played a simulator game, but at the same time are actually interested in playing this game. That's something that's going to be very critical for people to understand how to play. Or, well, not critical, but like they'll need to know the basics. And I think a lot of people are going to be making tutorials on that game, kind of show off what to do. And of course, there's going to be tutorials in the game to kind of get people started. I think having more in-depth tutorials like from YouTube and whatnot is actually pretty good. The reason I the reason for Wonders of Sodor being a big part of the channel for soon is actually kind of because, interestingly enough, like I said, it's bringing a lot of people into the simulator genre that have never really taken an interest in the simulator genre to begin with. I actually know a good friend of mine who never had played a simulator in his life. He's mainly played like Nintendo games and everything, and the fact that this is coming to the Nintendo Switch, he's actually interested in getting it because it's Thomas the Tank Engine. He kind of grew up with it, and he's more or less interested in that game. Well, he also is, like I said, he's never played a simulator, so he doesn't know what to deal with. So I thought, well, why not bring back the how-to series and kind of detail some of these unique little aspects to people that have never played these games at all, and really kind of delve into like what you need to do, how you need to do things. Now, granted, I'm never going to get everything 100% right, but practice makes perfect, honestly. This also extends to my secondary channel, which is the TS Dieselworks channel. This is actually another thing I wanted to touch on with the channel update, is that I do have a second channel. It's called TS Dieselworks. I think it's the TS Dieselworks official channel, or Dieselworks official channel. One of the two, but it will be linked in the description down below. And the channel itself was made to kind of house the devlogs in particular. They were meant to be where the devlogs would be released from that point forward. So the idea of these, like, I'm still putting them on this channel in particular, but with a bit more extra content so that people can, you know, get some information about what's going on with the channel itself and whatnot. So it's going to be a combination of the two things. But on the Dieselworks channel, the how-to series will be a bit more in line with like learning how to reskin and stuff like that, like certain little aspects of route making and stuff, which is something that I've actually learned through a couple videos on YouTube that are no longer around. Actually, the way I learned how to reskin equipment over the years and how to do certain things, a lot of those videos are not on YouTube anymore, because back then there were so many people within the community that were just joining it, and now the community is basically, many of those older people that were in the community have since disappeared or like basically left the community altogether. I mean, the Blackwater branch itself was a route that was being developed by another friend of mine as Century County, and he decided to leave the community, I want to say a couple of years after I joined it. 2016, 2017 is when I joined the community, and by about, I'd say about 2018, 2019, he was leaving the community and he gave me the route a couple of years later, because he was getting rid of stuff on his drive and transferring stuff around and whatnot. So, but it was one of those things that he was leaving the community, and he gave me some of his old stuff as a result. Now, the same thing goes for a lot of the tutorial videos that I've found over the years. One channel in particular that I was using for reskinning tutorials was actually Dash 7 Studios. I'll name him in particular because he used to have a video on his channel kind of showing off how he reskins equipment, and it was actually very informal. Like, that's how I do my reskins now. I ended up saving his video before it, I think it's either unlisted or removed entirely on his tutorial. But because I have a backup copy of it on my own like Google Drive at this point, I was always planning on remaking the reskinning tutorial so that people can actually learn how to make their own reskins without having to mess around with a bunch of stuff. Now, like I said, this also extends, right now, tutorials like that will not be on the Virtual Railfan Productions channels, they'll be on the TS Dieselworks channels. And I will share them on the TS Dieselworks Discord. So if you don't know, I do have a Discord for the TS Dieselworks, which is where I've been doing all the development of the Blackwater branch and all the other projects. But it's also kind of like my little hangout spot, if you will. It's not a big Discord, but there's quite a few people that are sometimes active, sometimes not. It's not as big as some of the other channel Discords that I've been on over the years. But I wanted to like really kind of detail that the channel is growing and it's changing as time goes on. I mean, I have to really specify, like a couple years ago, I only had about 700 subscribers. A couple years ago. It wasn't until Railroads Online was going into its 1.0 state that the channel blew up entirely. And that's when I really noticed, like, okay, people are interested in this channel. I started putting a little bit more effort into it, but it's not meant to be a career option for me. I still have a job in real life. I work retail. And it's one of those things where, like, when I have the time, I will record a video. In fact, I'm recording this particular segment of the video, or the narration rather, the day I'm supposed to go to work. I'm actually going to work a little bit after this is recorded. Now, this is not as of uploading. As of uploading, it's probably been a few weeks, if not maybe a month after I've recorded all this. It depends, really. But I'm hoping to get this out by March, which I hopefully did. A little back behind the scenes stuff with you. But the channel itself has really grown. And the main focus on the channel lately has been very interesting because a lot of people have found that Railwork Sundays and Railroads Online have been the two biggest views on the channel, with Railroader being another one. And Railwork Sundays, and Railroads Online have all kind of become mainstays on the channel. They're always going to be around on the channel, and I really do enjoy playing those games. Railroads Online is kind of more of a like pick up and go, while the other two take a little bit more concentration. That's why when it comes to actually talking during those videos, I don't talk very much because I'm just thinking things out loud, which, to be fair, is also pretty decent. But other games that I have plans for and the other stuff I want to talk, like go into playing and whatnot, that's going to take some time. That's going to take some effort, and hopefully by the time, I mean, I have plans for other unique videos on the channel, but for now, that's really all I have to say. It is that the channel itself has grown quite a bit, and I'm very proud of it. It's still going to be more of a hobby thing for me. It's not going to be a full-on career. It never will be. So you don't have to worry about that. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching and listening to this little devlog. Link to the Discord is in the description below, and links to all the channels are also listed down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.